This is CardGamesTV1 Podcast, episode 15. I'm going to talk about a couple different things, card games not being expensive, evolving as a player, how the meta doesn't matter, things of that nature. So that's just some of the stuff, things about Netdecking, things that I noticed, and, I'll just add on to the topics as we go. Right off the bat, card games aren't expensive. Like, I see that a lot. Like, people complaining about a card game like Yu-Gi-Oh, for example. Oh, also want to point out that this podcast is not just about Dragon Ball Super, but mainly I just been making videos about Dragon Ball, podcasts about Dragon Ball Super. I'm supposed to be talking about all the different types of card games. So what I'm talking about in this podcast, applies to other card games as well. But since Dragon Ball Super is the card game that I'm playing at the current moment, and making a decks for it, right? It makes sense that I mainly will be talking about Dragon Ball Super in my podcast. So the main thing, like I say, is that I see this in all the card games. Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, all that stuff. People complaining about the game being expensive, and it's like, no, it's not. Commons are cheap; they're not expensive. And you can build decks with commons. You can play and win with commons. You can top an event with commons. And it all stems from you being good at the game. Not every great card in any card game is only shiny cards. Ah, damn it! I gotta pause. All right, doing a podcast at work. Crazy. All right, what was I saying? Card games aren't expensive. You can play cheap cards. You should always look for budget options. Stuff like pre-built decks, like starter decks and structure decks and stuff like that, are nice. Sometimes you can buy like cores or pre-built like decks that people like built them, and they're selling their decks. You can get them for a lot cheaper than if you were to like go try to get the cards yourselves. But in general, it's like you should be trying to play cards that are generic. That way, no matter the format and whatever the meta change, all that stuff happens, you can always transfer your cards over, right? You can, like, you want your staples, right? Cards you will always use, as well as you want cards that you see that have potential to be useful when the time is right. These are cards that I classify as like competitive cards, or future staples. Cards that is like, this card's good in theory, like on paper it sounds good, but it's like it's not useful right now. Like, for example, I use Yu-Gi-Oh. For example, there was a time where there was a card called Vanny's Emptiness. That wasn't that great of a card. Because it had one, it prevents both players from special summoning, and then the second thing was if one of your cards goes from the field to the graveyard, then it also goes to the graveyard. So it didn't stick on the field too long, right? But after a while, some players realized that if you put something really like a really good strong monster on the field, right, and then use that card to prevent your opponent from playing something stronger, right, that will give you an advantage. Even if it's just for one turn, that one turn matters. So those small little details, just being able to get one extra turn, slowing your opponent down one turn matters. And it's all about you taking advantage of that, that situation. That's why it's like, instead of, if you don't have a lot of money to play meta or play the best deck in the game type of thing, then put your money towards buying stuff that beats the best things, right? I'd rather play anti-meta than play meta, because meta is more expensive. Anti-meta is cheaper, so why not play anti-meta, which beats meta? That's why it's called anti-meta. It's like you're literally using stuff against what's popular, what everyone uses. If everyone's using the same thing, then they have the same weaknesses, which means whatever you have will work on each and every one of those decks. So that's why I prefer to create things in decks that aren't meta, right? But ironically, they become meta over time, but aren't meta. I try to create stuff that wins the game, not do something cool and fancy just for the sake of doing something cool and fancy, right? Like, oh, this is some cool combo I created, and there's some cool stuff, but it's like, yeah, but it's not necessary when there's much easier, simpler, straightforward ways of doing things. Now, I can do stuff just for the sake of it. What I'm saying is that, a lot of these meta decks, they tend to be very popular because they do stuff different. Like, they just do stuff different for the sake of doing things different. And, people like that. Like, oh, this deck is cool because it has this cool way of playing. Like, yeah, it's cool in the sense that it's different than other stuff you see. But if its end goal is to try to do a certain amount of damage in order to win, there's way easier, cheaper methods to do that, right? Like that looks nice, but that's the point. It just looks nice, right? It's kind of like a Lamborghini versus a regular car. It's like, yeah, Lamborghini looks awesome and it's expensive, but it does the same thing any other car does. Gets you from point A to point B. So I'd rather use whatever gets me the end result, which is I'm trying to get from point A to point B. That matters more to me than how the vehicle looks or the price tag, right? To a certain degree, the price tag matters, as in I'd rather pay less than to pay more, right? So I'd rather pay less and get the same results of something that costs more, which is where reprints come in, right? It's so many people are so in a hurry to play something that everyone else is playing, or just because it's new they want it, and then they end up having to pay that, oh, it's brand new price, or it's very popular price, right? Okay, that's another thing. The game itself is not expensive. Let me give you the rundown. It doesn't cost a lot of money for the card game company to create the cards. It's very cheap, dirt cheap for them to make the cards. Then when they sell it through packs, through booster boxes, in cases, right? Those are also not expensive. Let's say it's $4 to $5 a pack. That's not expensive. $100, $200, $300 for a single card, that's expensive. But you know what causes that price? Not the company that created the cards, not the booster pack you pay $5 for that creates that. No, it's the secondary market. It's people who have access to the card and other people want it, so then they put a big price tag on it. Supply and demand. Secondary market is expensive, not the game, not the first market. The first market is buying booster packs, buying booster boxes. For $100, you can buy a whole entire booster box and get everything that comes in there. So if there's a high rarity card in there, you're guaranteed to get it because you paid the $100 for it, right? The only reason why a card like Baby Hatchet would be, between $300 to $600 for the card is because of the supply and demand. There's very few copies of it in existence, right? And 99% of the player base, well, let me cut it down. I'll say 70% of the player base that likes playing blue wants the card. Because if you're playing green, it's pointless. If you're playing red, it's pointless, right? So if you're a yellow player, it's pointless. You want Selzeno, right? So you get my point. It's like, it's only expensive because of the secondary market. Because players are like, okay, I got the card, and I'm not going to give it up unless I get, a good price for it. And that's where the high price comes from. Buying singles is expensive, not buying packs and starter decks and booster boxes. That's not expensive. That's cheap. So don't want to spend too much time talking, about, the games aren't expensive. It just point out the fact that like they're not expensive. Netdecking is expensive because usually somebody who likes, the really good cards, right? The really expensive cards, as it were. Well, they'll spend a lot of money getting those very expensive cards, and then they'll build the deck. All right, that's what they wanted to do, and they might even want to bling it out and, buy shiny versions of cards that they didn't have to buy shiny versions of the card. They could have got the non-shiny versions, right? They could have got the non-foil, but they want all their cards to be foiled. So they forked over more money for that. All right, fine. They could do whatever they want their money. And just like you can do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. What I'm saying is don't be saying, oh, the game is expensive. No, it's not. The players make the game expensive. The secondary market makes the game expensive. So if you net deck a deck that is worth over $1,000 to build in real life, the way it was in the video you watched, that's what's expensive, not the actual game itself. You can spend 30, 40 bucks and play the game just fine. Do really good just fine. You could beat these expensive decks if you know how to play the game. Because I've said it many times before in my other podcasts and videos, the first 4 damage is the easiest. Not first 4 damage is the easiest because I gotta sell Zeno or some bullshit. Like, no, first 4 damage is easy to do because you start off with a leader. So every turn you swing with the leader, you have a high chance of dealing at least 1 damage per turn with the leader. So the first 4 damage is the easiest, and usually it's because your opponent lets you, because your opponent's not trying to waste a negate or a block or a super combo in the first couple turns of the game. They want to save into late game, which is why the first 4 damage is the easiest. So you don't have to have expensive deck to at least do the first 4 damage. Then after that requires a little effort, right? You gotta try to get a double strike, through your opponent's defenses, because once they have 3 or more energy, they can start playing, 2 drops, 1 drops, right? And most negates, right, and blockers tend to be 1 cost, right? Cheap. So once they have more than 2 energies, they can start, playing stuff, but also still keep their defenses up. And that's what they're going to want to do, is keep at least 1 or 2 energy up for their negates, and then play something to attack you with, like 2-drop unison, right? For example, their leader is going to swing, obviously, so they're going to try to do 2 to 3 swings a turn. Eventually, they're going to go leader, unison, and a battle card swing, right? And try to go even beyond that, but always try to keep their defenses up, for when you attack back, which is going to happen. You're going to attack back. So that's why the first 2 turns is the most important turns to deal the most amount of damage. I literally got a video recently, a gameplay of me, my opponent went first, I went second, and immediately, I attacked with my leader, they negated my leader's attack. But then afterwards, I proceeded to do 6 damage. Played a whole bunch of cards, most of it free, and brought my opponent down to 2. Turn 1, my opponent's down to 2 life. I had 7 because, my leader effect. I was playing go on burn. But the point is that I'm at 7 life on my first turn, and my opponent's at 2 life on my first turn. So think about that. That's the kind of stuff that I can do. And again, not expensive. These are cheap budget cards. A lot of these cards are common or uncommon, right? They're not foil. They're not ultimates or super rare, secret rare, or ultra rare, or whatever all the rarities are, right? They're not expensive yet. You see how much damage I can do in the with commons and uncommons. So it's not that hard to play this game, especially if you can do 6 damage on turn 1. Yeah, this game is child's play. Literally, it is a kid's game after all. So play by adults, right? Hashtag. But the point is that it's not difficult. So no, it's not expensive. Players make it expensive. The game itself and the company that makes it not expensive is all cheap. One of the selling points originally for getting into Dragon Ball Super, and one of the ways that me and my friends were promoted to other people, was the idea that it was cheap to get into. Not because there is a slight difference between Dragon Ball Super and Yu-Gi-Oh when it comes to their commons. See, Yu-Gi-Oh definitely over the years started leaning towards putting a lot of the good cards or effects, right, or at least generically good, closer to the higher, to the foil rate, area, right, section, and they just threw like we'll say junk, right? They threw a lot of fillers. That's what we used to call it, fillers, into the common, uncommon, and rare slots. There was a time where you get a rare and it was actually really good, like it was like ultra rare or secret rare or super rare, whatever you call it, right, type of level. Think about it. Senzu started off as a uncommon, if I'm right. Topo was an uncommon from the draft box, and we see how powerful that is and how popular that is. Objection, I think that was a common, if I'm right. Shit, some of the cards I'm using now, there's some unisons that are common. They're really good, like the SS4 Broly unison. That's, you know, a common card, and it's powerful. It's a 20k on turn 2, 25 on turn 3. It's a 30k on turn 4. If you know, you wait and then play it. Shit, imagine once that you get an ability to add markers. Once they make adding markers more, you know, add that to the game, you can make him stronger and stronger. Obviously, he's really good in ramp. You know, since he's a unison, I definitely use him in KO deck, because I can easily ramp to like 8 energy by like turn 4 or 5 with the KO deck. And 8 energy is an extra, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 40k, so it makes him a 50k, right? I think I said it right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 50k. You can make him 50k with 8 energy. Think about that. That's stronger than an STR, than an ultimate. And you can have 4 of them in your deck, and it's black. It's generic black. It's not specified black or anything, so you can splash in any deck that can ramp. So, plus it's just good as a late game card. Good early game. Play 1 copy early game, take advantage of it, and then play 1 late game, you know, to help you finish out, you know, finish out the game. You can literally play something that's really strong, like making it 40k late game and swinging with it, and then comboing, you know, your super combos and whatnot to finish your point off is obviously a good strategy. And it's generic. That's the thing, it's generic. So you can splash in any deck. You don't have to meet too many requirements other than just play it for a lot of energy. I'm been promoting that card for a while, you know, telling people in my profiles like, this card is good, but no one else is talking about it. None of these actual content creators are talking about it, about how good this card is and how it should be a staple. But whatever. But it's because it's not shiny, that's why. Because if it was an SDR, everybody would be promoting the shit out of it. But because it's a common, no one cares, even though it's its power level is beyond some secret rares power level. But anyway, moving on. Originality in the game, right? Too many people are trying to stifle the idea of originality. Something me and my friends been noticing is that, especially in this community, I've seen it the most. Like Yu-Gi-Oh community started doing that after the past couple of years. The whole idea of like the sheep mentality, right? Everybody being the same, everybody playing the same. The whole Netdecking thing started going out of control. Most of us been trying to get people off the idea of Netdecking. It's like, to a certain degree, it's like, if you know, we're not against Netdecking. What we're against is, you know, we're not against copying a deck. We're against the mentality people have for that. And the worst thing is to teach a new player Netdecking. That's the worst thing. Netdecking ruins the game for new players because they think that's how you're supposed to play the game. That you're supposed to go on the internet and copy a deck, instead of watching a deck profile, learning from the deck profile, right, getting some ideas from it, and then build a deck either similar, or just take the ideas from that deck and just build a totally different deck with like different cards that have a similar result, right? You don't need to play a cell surge, for example. You could just play any of the other cell leaders, or you could play Android 13 or something, and just use some of the cards that you know they're used in cell surge, and use it with Android 13 instead, as an example, right? You don't have to do something exactly like how someone else did. You can do things differently. Like my deck profiles, for example, a lot of times I don't play super combos. Doesn't mean you can't put them in, you know, for when you play it, but I just don't play it. That's the difference. So it's like, you don't have to play my builds exactly the way I build them. You can change the deck if you want. Do whatever you want. I definitely encourage it. You know, if you have some ideas to improve upon the deck's capabilities. You know, I could have came up with a really cool, you know, combo strategy, made a nice, you know, pretty simple to use build, but maybe you figured out a way to make the deck faster, make it do what I want it to do faster. Like, I just gave you a basic version of the deck. Like, you know, just like, all right, here's the deck strategy. Here's some basic, you know, generic cards you can use to play the game. And there you go. I didn't optimize it to be the fastest deck in the game, right? You know, there's still room for improvement. So you can always make it faster. You know, if you can truly, you know, if you can truly make the deck better with super combos, then do it. You know what I mean? I focus on making the deck work and do what I want it to do. If the idea is to play a whole bunch of 30k skillless battle cards, and that's my goal, then that's how I built the deck. I built the deck to do that. Ironically, some people think that that's a bad idea. Like, they don't like that idea. It's like, what? How you not impressed? I actually built a deck that can do it. And it's not like it can't do it. It can do it. And I've done gameplay showing, like, look, see, it can be done. You know? But ironically, people still just want to believe what they want to believe. It's like, all right, fine. If you don't like the strategy, fine. And create your own strategy, fine. Do something else. Like, why are you complaining about the idea? It's like, the idea works. It's a good idea, right? Because it's cool and it works. Even if you don't like the idea and think that it's like not necessary, like that's just too much just to do something that you could, you know, probably do with less cards, all right, then you do you. Play a strategy with less cards than I'm using. But don't, you know, look down upon the idea because it's an idea. Just because it's different than what you're used to. It's like, okay, you play different than I play. That is fine. To each their own. Not one size fits all. And the problem is in this game, a lot of people like to think one size fits all. A lot of people like to think that if they copy somebody else's deck, they get the same results that that person got with the deck, not realizing, it's like, no, decks are like tools, right? They're tools, right? They're a collection of cards that a specific player who uses the deck is used to using those specific cards. Since I don't really use super combos, that's why my decks don't have super combos. Except for the ones that do, but typically I don't have super combos. Reason why is because I don't use super combos. You know? And some people don't understand it, but hey, the point is that we are different. So yes, I could play the game without super combos, because they're just battle cards. And I'd rather use other battle cards than super combos. That's just the nature of the game. Like Champani Supreme Kai. Those are better cards for me. And they work for me, so I'm going to use what works for me. You use what works for you. Because, you know, different strokes for different folks, as they say. And that's the whole point of a deck, is that the deck works for you if it works for you. If you're a control player, it does not make sense for you to play aggro. If you're an aggro player, it does not make sense for you to play control. You know? If you only understand the game at the most basic level, it does not make sense for you to, you know, go net deck a combo deck. It's like, but you barely understand, you know, card interactions and the rules of the game, and you just started learning the game, and already you think you can just jump into being a combo player. It's like, nah, you still gotta finish learning the basics before you get to that level. You know, so that's the kind of stuff that I see is like people, and not just that, you know, people trying to be the same, is that there's the idea of promoting the same. That's why it's like a lot of, you know, I'll say content creators, you know, quote unquote pro or, you know, or top level players, whatever term they like to use, you know, tend to promote certain ideas, certain strategies. They'll literally be the ones they'll say there's like, oh, yellow's the best color right now, all the other colors are weak, blah blah blah. It's like, that's a lie. I especially one of the things that always annoys me was for a while people saying blue was one of the weakest colors because it wasn't defensive enough, and I'm like, wait, what? But that's blue's identity is defense. Blue is all about defense. It has tons of blockers, it has tons of negates. It's all about defense. It has effects to bounce things off the board, and a lot of times it's doing your opponent's right. And then it has a whole bunch of counterplays. You got the baby deck. That's control. That's blue control. Just like in Magic, blue is control, right? You know, you defend through bounce spells and counter spells. So it's like funny to hear the idea that blue is a weak color because it's not defensive enough, but it's like it is defensive. Then there was somebody who said that blue doesn't have a lot of barrier hate, like a lot of, you know, ignoring barrier effects. I'm like, who? It sounds like y'all don't even play these colors. It's like y'all don't even understand the game. How do you not know that blue has a lot of ignoring barrier effects? Like, that's the kind of stuff I literally see, and these are and this comes from people who have a bigger audience than me, right? Who, you know, play competitively, right? But then they're saying shit that is like, wait, but that's wrong. They're saying blue is not defensive, but it is defensive. It's the defensive color. What's next? Red is not aggro, but red is the aggro color. Like, think about how that's not making sense, right? It's like saying green is not the hand control, you know, color. It's like, what? But that's what it is. It's the hand control color. What? You know, that kind of. It's like saying black is not the graveyard or the drop area color. It's like, but it is and it's not only that, it's also the generic color of the game at the current moment. So it's like, it's just so weird to hear people always, especially people in certain positions, to be saying that something isn't what it really is, right? And I definitely experienced that bullshit a lot. Like, people say my decks are terrible, but they never tried it. They never even watched the full video. They just look at screenshots and then think they know everything. It's like, you don't even know, you know, why the cards are in the deck, what the deck's about. You haven't even tried it, yet you're already judging it. That's weird. Just like when people do set reviews, they'll look through a set and they'll look through a certain archetype and they'll be like, oh, okay, this don't look good. Then later on be like, oh, actually is good. I tried it. You're supposed to try it first before you start having opinions. Like, you're literally judging something based off of just looking at it, which means you're just being opinionated, which means you don't know what the F you're talking about. And that's a problem when you have people that talk as if they know something, but then in reality they don't. And then later on you find out, oh, well, this person didn't know what they were talking about because they have nothing to back it up, right? They don't have no actual experience to back it up. Now, I have many over 20 years of card game experience because I've been playing, you know, all different types of card game, like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, and Pokemon, and Card Fight Vanguard, Buddy Fight, so forth and so forth, right? And I tried Naruto, right? I tried different card games. I like to play card games. It's my thing. So I build a lot of decks. You know, obviously, I gotta build a deck for every game I play, right? I gotta build something, right? And yeah, I played Digimon, build some deck profiles for them. So you get the point is like, and a lot of the experience and knowledge I have from one card game, I can transfer it over to another card game, especially if there's a lot of similarities. For example, Dragon Ball Super is a mixture of Magic, of course, right, and Duel Masters. Duel Masters, of course, was a combination of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh. It took stuff from Yu-Gi-Oh, took, you know, stuff from Magic, and put it together. Interesting enough, Force of Will, essentially it's just Magic, but the difference is you don't have the lands in your deck. The lands are separate. They call them Magic Stones. So that's one thing I like about Force of Will, is that it's like Magic, but the lands are not in the deck. They're outside the deck, which is good, because one, you're guaranteed to always have lands, which means you're always guaranteed you have energy to play your cards. So you can never get mana screwed, as they say in Magic, where you don't have, you know, all the lands that you need to play your deck. See, Duel Masters and Dragon Ball Super, what they did was all your cards are lands, right? All your cards can be used to play your other cards. So you charge a card, right? And now you can play that card. Some other games don't have the the energy or the mana system or the economic system, resource system, whatever you want to call it, because they want you to fill your deck up with a whole bunch of cards you can use and just use them, right? Like Yu-Gi-Oh, for example. But interesting enough, the ones that, the games that require a lot more decision making tend to be the ones where you have to pay for stuff, because you either tap out to play something like a creature or battle card, right, to attack with, or you keep your energy up, or lands or whatever, right, to play defense. So you either choose between offense or defense. Unlike most other games where you don't have to pay, you can have both. Like, all right, let me set my face down trap for defense, summon my monster so I can attack. Now I have offense and defense for free, right? That makes it simpler. It's easier for kids to play that game, right? Because you don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to think between, attacking or defending. You could do both, right? But in this game, just like Magic and Duel Masters and whatnot and Force of Will, you gotta pay. So you gotta know. So you can't just buy everything, right? You can't, unless you have a lot of mana or energy, right, to buy everything. Then you have to choose between, playing a counterplay, or playing a battle card, or saving your energy for a negate attack, or play a battle card, or a unison, right? So decision making. But again, back to the originality. You never want to be in a position where your deck is predictable, right? You want to be unpredictable. You have more power from your opponent not knowing what your deck does than when they know what your deck does. Because when they know what your deck does, you actually have more vulnerability. Your deck is a lot weaker. They have a better chance of beating your deck because they know what's in your deck. But if they don't know what's in your deck, you have a better chance of beating them. I've had scenarios where people were expecting me to use super combos against them, for example, and they were playing with the idea that I had super combos, until they, it's too late, and they realized, like, wait a minute, where are your super combos? I'm like, oh, I don't play super combos, and then just left the game right after the game was over, right? Which means the whole time they were expecting super combos while we were playing, but I don't have any. Therefore, they were playing, in their mind, they're playing the game differently than I was. So I was playing without super combos. In their mind, they thought I was playing with super combos. And that gave me an advantage. More powerful than me actually using super combos, right? It's not playing super combos and my opponent thinking I have super combos, and then they end up epically failing because I don't. Therefore, that gave me an advantage that outweighs actually having super combos. As an example, just like, for example, a better example, because some people might not understand that example, and they'll be like, oh, that don't make no sense. Okay, how about this? My opponent plays in a way like they only play one battle card and only want to keep one battle card on the field. Or let's say my opponent tries to save some of their draw effects because they're afraid that I'm going to drop Android 17 Turning the Tide, or I'm going to play something that board wipes, right? Those two types of scenarios. My opponent is assuming I'm going to do one of those two things: get rid of their hand or get rid of the board. And then they play based off of that idea that I have that. I played against somebody who thought I had Android 17 Turning the Tide in my deck. And the way they were playing was with that in mind. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't have that in the deck. And they were surprised, like, wait, what? Why don't you? Because I'm not. And then I played the card that I actually was playing. My 10-drop, Gogeta. Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta Frenzied Burst. And I made my opponent lose 4 life. Right? So I beat him with that. So it was just funny that they were expecting me to turn the ties them, but I instead Gogeta them. Gogeta burn for 4. And won right there and then. And that's the thing, is like, okay, you were playing with the idea that I was going to play Turning the Tide, so you were trying to prepare for Turning the Tide, but instead I played something that wasn't Turning the Tide, and that threw you off. And that's the whole point. Think about how much more powerful that is for your opponent to think you were doing something, or you were going to do something that you actually wasn't going to do at all. That does give you an advantage. That is known as mind games. If you could do that on purpose to your opponent, that's very powerful. That's a very powerful skill to have, is the ability to make your opponent think you have something you actually don't have, and then, you know, take advantage of it, right? Have that advantage through that. So one of the skills I have, which is ironically, that's something hard to do online. Like when you're playing somebody face to face, it's easier to imply, to suggest through your body language, right? Through your movements, through, you know, through this, you know, through the way you do things, you know, when you're playing. It can give your opponent the impression that you might have something that you actually don't. And that is just as powerful as actually having an actual card with an actual effect. Anyway, moving on, that's just some, you know, game theory right there for you. But back to originality. I'll move on to the next topic, but just back to originality. You get more power and more wins, more W's, right? People love that, through originality than through netdecking. Because remember, not only do you copy that good stuff, the deck you're copying off of has, you also copy its weakness. And sometimes the lack of that person who built it, not being the person using the deck, that is part of the weakness. Like, for example, my decks are better in my hands than they will ever be in somebody else's hands. I recently saw somebody who used one of my decks and they used it wrong, which was surprising because it's like most of the stuff they did wrong. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing it. One, logically, no one would have made that decision. No one would have deliberately charged a negate when their hands wasn't full of negates. You gave up something useful, something necessary, something you needed. For what? That was weird. Just like I saw that person combo a battle card, right? Use a battle card just to get a 5k boost, and the card was a really good card. When they had a 4-star ball in their hand, they could have used the 4-star ball to get the 5k boost instead, and add it back to the hand through a Goku Adventure Begins effect. So why didn't they? Why did they give up a battle card to stop an attack when they could have used the 4-star ball instead? That's what the 4-star ball is for, to use as free combo, because you can always get it back. So it's reusable combo, it's infinite combo, as it were, or endless combo as I call it. So that was weird, right? Weird for me because it's like, that's not what I would do. I would use the 4-star ball, not the battle card, to combo. But that's the way I play. Clearly other people play differently. Clearly other people are so used to comboing away battle cards to stop attacks that even when they have an alternative like the 4-star ball to do the same thing that using a battle card, they instinctively, from the way they play, oh yeah, let me use this battle card to stop that attack, when they literally have the 4-star ball to stop the attack instead. That's the difference, right? Some people would like to think I'm a bad player and this and that. I don't know what I'm doing, talking and whatnot. It's like, that don't make no sense. I know more about what I'm talking about than most people do. You know, I'm trying to get away from certain, certain behaviors, certain ways of playing that people are used to, like super combos. Everybody's used to super combos. So when I bring up the idea, like, yeah, I don't use them no more, because I rather negate an attack, block an attack, or I'll just take the attack. There's no point in trying to out combo an attack. I'd rather just take it, or block it, or negate it. Those are our options. But people are like, no, I gotta have super combos. I gotta combo and draw and combo and draw. I'm like, all right, you do that. You keep playing a whole bunch of cards from your hands, trying to stop one attack when your opponent still has like 3 more attacks waiting to come at you. Yeah, go ahead, waste time doing that. That was pointless. Especially, you're using 3 cards sometimes just to stop one attack. I'd rather use 1 card to stop one attack, whether it be a blocker or a negate, or again, like I said, just take the hit. Sometimes just taking the hit is better than doing anything. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing you can do, right? Don't block, don't negate, just take the hit. Sometimes doing nothing is the best thing you can do. Anyway, moving on. A deck's main combo is what matters more than the full entire build. Some people, complain about how my decks are built. They don't like the ratios. Oh, too many unisons, this, that, that. It's like, all right, fine. Then change the deck. I already explained what the deck does. And the deck mainly focuses on like maybe 3 to 4, maybe 5 cards at most in the deck. That's what makes the deck. Those 4 to 5, you know, specific things. Everything else is just whatever, you know, floats your boat, right? Whatever works. If you want super combos, take out some unisons and put in super combos. I don't care. Whatever works for you, right? But for me, I like to have 12 unisons. 9 is the other ratio that I go with. If I'm trying to make a 50 card deck and I have an ultimate in the deck, I go the 9 unison route. But 12 is the way, as they say. You can go 16, 20, and even all the way up to 60 unisons if you want to go that far, but not necessary. But I have done it. The point is that use what works for you. For me, having 3 unisons, one for early game, which is turn 1, turn 2, one for mid game, which is turn 3, turn 4, and one for late game, which is turn 5 and above. Right? So I'll always want to make sure I have unisons for those 3 different parts of the game. You know, the beginning, the middle, and the end. A lot of times, yeah, my 4 or 5 drops, unisons tend to be like they're my finishers, or I try to use them as my win cons or something, if that's what they're for. If they're in the deck as a win con, then that's what they're for, right? Or they can lead to a win con, especially if I have a win con that's like turn 6, turn 7 type of strategy. Then I will have a turn 5 unison, for example, to help me try to transition to turn 6, turn 7. So, you know, like Super Saiyan 4, Goku, Earth's Protector of Earth, you know, I would use that to try to get an extra turn, try to get to turn 6, you know what I mean, and then go from there. And if I can get to turn 7, you know, even better, right? Especially if I'm trying to drop turning the tide, it'd be nice to have something that I can rely on, something that's hard to negate, like a unison. So I go that route. And that's the thing, unisons are pretty awesome because since they're not battle cards, they're not leader cards, they're not extra cards, they're a little bit more immune to a lot of stuff that's in the game. So I can play them freely without asking for a response, right? Because there's not that many cards, or none at all, that can really mess with unisons like that. But they're trying to make some stuff that do. But anyway, point is that yeah, I use a lot of unisons, and I don't mind using more because they serve the purpose. They do what they need to do. Typically, turn 1, turn 2, you don't really need to combo that much. It's rare to combo or need to combo, right? Or need to be defensive turn 1, turn 2, because most decks are not like my X hit combo decks. Like my Gohan deck, for example, they don't typically deal you 6 damage on turn 1. You know, most decks out there don't do that. Now launch, King Vegeta and King Piccolo have they do copy my Gohan's deck strategy, or at least just my play style. That's my main play style, is that turn 1 6 hit or more combo strategy, or aggro if you want to call it that. Essentially that's what it is, just aggro, right? That's typically how I play, but I do try other stuff like combo, mid range, or do some type of auto win con or mill or burn or whatever. Like I'm always trying different stuff. Control, right? Obviously control. So I'll build different strategies, different types of decks. Hand control, I forgot to mention. Yeah, hand control is another thing, right? So I'll try different things because why not? Why not have different ways of playing the game? And of course, I have ideas for different ways of playing the game. Hand control, board control, mill, aggro, counter, control, stuff like that. So I have those ideas and I share them, right, through making deck profiles. So that's the point, is like you don't have to copy my decks card for card. There's some people who point out like, oh man, he made this deck expensive, and I'm like, the only thing really expensive in the deck is the ultimate, which you don't really need. It's just there because it's a good card. if you can't afford the ultimate, then play the deck without the ultimate. It's not like the deck would be 49 if you take the ultimate out. You know, the deck would be, the deck's currently 53 cards, so you could take out the ultimate and play a 52 card deck. You don't need that expensive card if it's a problem. Put something else. Put like Heroes Lineage or something, which is cheaper, or any other cheap ultimate if you really want an ultimate in the deck. But it's not necessary. You could just not play an ultimate and you'd be good, right? You don't need an SCR. You can play without it. That reminds me of the time some people were complaining and they were like, damn, no SR, no SCRs, no PRs. And at first I'm like, what the hell are they saying? I didn't understand at first. I'm like, what the hell do these acronyms mean? I was thinking they were like referring to like like certain cards, but they were using like the initials, like how we will say DS for double strike, right? So I'm like, what is this person referring to? I don't understand that. Or like Black Mass Saint is BMS, right? So they'll use acronyms like BMS and they mean Black Mass Saint, for example. And I'm like, I don't get it. And then I realized, oh, SCR secret rare, SR super rare, oh, PR promo, oh, that's what they're referring. They're referring to rarity. I'm like, wait, what does the rarity of a card matter? Why are they complaining about card rarities? And well, obviously when you think about it, it's like, oh, okay, the expensive cards, right? The shiny cards, promos and secret rares and SCRs and SPRs and stuff like that. It's like, okay, to each their own, but it's like, no, I don't need those high rarity cards to play the game. I can play the game without them, right? I do use some from time to time. I can't afford some. I have some ultimates that I have, but I don't have to play them. I could always not play them, right? But it was just weird, the idea of somebody thinking like, wait, why don't you have those high rarity cards in your deck? Is you don't need them. It's not like the way you build a deck is that you have to have 4 super combos, 1 ultimate, right, aka an SCR, and then a certain ratio of rares, super rares, uncommons, and then the rest of your deck you just fill it with like a whole bunch of commons, and preferably foil, so that way the deck looks cool. Like, nah, that's how y'all like to build decks. That's on you, to each their own. I'm not against it. I'm not saying that don't do that. Do whatever you want. What I am saying is that's not the standard. If you look in a rule book, it doesn't say to do that. It doesn't say build a minimum of 50. The minimum to build a deck is 50 cards plus the leader, plus super combos, right? 4 of them definitely, plus an SCR, plus SR, plus a rare, plus uncommons, and then these many commons. Like, no, there's no specific ratios when it comes to the to rarities when it comes to your deck, other than certain keyword restrictions like ultimate, super rare, right? But again, optional. You don't have to play an ultimate. You don't have to play super combos. Just like you don't have to play unisons. You don't have to play extra cards or battle cards, right? Now, obviously, it'd be difficult to build a deck if you choose to not play any of that. You gotta have at least 1 card type in the deck. All unisons, all extra cards, all battle cards, right? Can't do all all super combos, obviously, but that's not a card type. That's just a keyword. Super combos, or the cards that have super combos, are just battle cards. Just like the cards that have ultimate are battle cards. Granted, there's an extra card in a unit and a unison. You get the point. But that's just keywords, is what I'm pointing out. Most ultimates are battle cards, but they're just keywords, right? They're not card types. Unison, extra card, battle card, and of course leader. Can't have an all leader deck, obviously. That would be interesting, but can't. Still waiting for them to add the ability for you to swap out your leader. That'd be kind of cool. I think there was a time where that was a thing. People were like talking about the idea. There's like you can have a different leader in your sideboard and then side out your leader. Like, that would have been cool. That would have been fun. Yeah, that would have been fun. But then later on, I started thinking, me and my friends, come up with ideas, and one of the ideas was is to have, like, let's say Goku on the front, and then when you awaken, it's Frieza or Vegeta or something like that, like a totally different character on the backside. So like we had ideas like that. We had ideas for launch, being a leader that you could flip back and forth. We had the idea for flipping back and forth for any leader, in as a mechanic, period. But the idea like, oh shit, launch should definitely have that mechanic of flipping back and forth, right? And definitely since set one, I definitely was one of the ones who was like, the leaders need to draw on the front. I don't like the fact that I have to awaken in order to get the draw, and you need the ability to draw in this game because we waste too many cards comboing, charging energy. Your hands get small way too fast in the first 4 turns of the game. In the first 2 turns of the game, your hand gets small so fast. You're gonna run out of resources, and it makes it harder to play the game. And it's like, yeah, this game has a flaw. You need to draw in order to play the game consistently, because you're going to run out of cards eventually from comboing when you attack, comboing when you defend, charging in energy. That causes you to waste cards faster from your hand. You need a way to replenish your hand, and that's where drawing in the front was. I'm like, yo, leaders need to draw in the front. But they started off with, oh, no, you have to have 4 less life, awaken, then you can draw. It's like, yeah, I don't like that idea. I don't want to if I'm at 4 life, that means I'm playing the game wrong and I'm losing. I don't want to be losing to try to get the draw effect. I need to draw so I can just play the game, keep my life points high. I'm trying to keep my life at 8. I'm not trying to lose life. I'm trying to maintain it. I'm trying to keep it. So that's where the idea of like, oh, we need draw. We need leaders to draw in the front. Then they eventually gave us leaders to draw in the front. It's like, finally, they draw in the front and they do some other shit in the back. Now they make it where it's like, oh yeah, we draw in the front and the back, and you get extra stuff. Not only that, you draw in the front, get extra effects. Then when you awaken, you still draw and get extra effects. Like, all right, man, I just wanted the leader to at least draw in the front and the back. It could do something extra cool, I didn't need you to just add drawing, searching, playing for free, life gain, double strike, triple strike, like dual attack blocker, like revenge. Like, I didn't need you to put all of that on the front of a leader. I just make it basic. It draws maybe 1 extra effect. It's awaken ability, of course, and just leave it at that. Didn't have to go too much, but beggars can't be choosers, as they say, right? But it was just funny how I just wanted the front side to draw, and then suddenly, man, I just went crazy, and just did more than that. Not saying that I'm the reason for it, or I told them to do that or anything. I'm just saying that that's what I wanted, the front side to draw. Then we got that, and then we got more than that. Beggars can't be choosers, right? All I wanted was the leaders to at least draw in the front. I don't care what they did, from there. So they did whatever they wanted from there, right? They went to infinity and beyond. The meta doesn't matter, so this will be like the meta doesn't matter. See, I focus on the concept of format. Like, is this a hand control format, or is this an aggro format, or is this a control format? Like, that's what when it comes to playstyle. For me, format is playstyle. Like, what's the popular playstyle? Meta is what's the popular decks, right? What's the popular leaders? The people are building with popular colors. That's to me meta. For some people it's different. Some people are like, to them meta is essentially format, but they call it meta. But some people tend to use certain words wrong. They tend to redefine stuff. But it's like, to me, meta is what's popular, right? The most popular decks, most popular colors at the time. So meta to me equals popular, not the best. Not a specific play style, it's just what's popular. So if playing Cell Surge is popular, then that's the meta, right? That's what's popular right now. But later on, it could be a Hercule deck or something. Then that would be the meta. That's what's popular. And there could be more than one meta deck, obviously, right? That's why we have the term meta deck, not format deck, meta deck, right? Because it's what's popular. Something else I found out from other card games and from years of playing is that, meta decks, a lot of people like to act like meta decks are the best decks in the game, right? The strongest decks in the game. That's why they're meta decks. So people like to use the term meta deck to refer to a deck being really good and strong. When in reality, that's not what meta deck is. That's not what makes meta meta. Meta is, again, being popular. It's popular. But you know what's popular in card games, especially among the newer generation nowadays, and among most players, especially if you have low skill, like a low skill. What's easy? Think about it. New players like things to be easy. Even players that have been playing for a long time, even they want stuff to be easy. They don't want things to be hard. They want things to be easy. So what's popular is what's easy, aka what's easy to play. Therefore, meta decks are not the best decks in the game. They're the easiest decks to play in the game. The easiest to do what you want to do, especially when it comes to the concept of consistency. What's the easiest way to go from point A to point B is what I'm trying to say. To go from your opponent having a life to your opponent having 0, what is the fastest way you can do that? Or at least what's the easiest way in the current game at that time to do that? And people gravitate to certain decks like Dark Broly. That was easy. That was skillless, right? And skillless is a very easy and very popular way of playing. People like to play decks that require very little skill, which means it requires them to have very little skill in the game. They don't have to know all the rules. They don't have to be really that good at the game. They don't have to know the meta or know how every deck works. All they need to know is how that deck works that they're using, how to play the deck, right? The combos and the play lines, as they say, or the lines of play, and that's it. They just need to know how to play that deck, play it, and try to get W's that way. If they lose, you know why they lose? Is because they didn't succeed in that basic strategy. They didn't get the right hand, therefore they lost. Because they don't know what to do with the hand other than what, they only know how to play certain hands. They can't just play the game in general where they could just beat you in the most basic way. They need specific cards in order to beat you. And if they don't draw those specific cards, they can't beat you. And that tends to happen a lot. And that's how you know somebody's like, oh yeah, that person's not that good at the game. They couldn't figure out a way to win without that deck specific little cool combo. They need that combo in order to win. Other than that, they're not going to win. That deck doesn't even have another win con, another way of winning without the deck's main way of winning, right? If you have the Bruce deck, where if you have 16 energies, you auto win, right? You pay 16 energies, you win. If you have nothing else in the deck other than just cards to help you ramp to try to perform that combo, but you have no other way of dealing your opponent 8 damage and win that way, or mill your opponent, or burn your opponent. If you don't have those other types of ways of winning, well, then you're more likely going to lose before you even get to 16 energy, right? Which means if you never get to 16 energies, you're never going to win. And if your opponent is, going really fast and aggro and countering stuff and trying to make it hard for you to get to 16 energies, the likelihood of you losing is higher, because you only have one way of winning, which is 16 energies, right? So that's why it's a good idea to have more than one win con in your deck, more than one way of winning. But that's the mindset of a actual good player. They put more than one way of winning in a deck. That's why, I'll make a deck that's like, oh yeah, I have this cool combo where I could play a Boonie twice in a turn and go wide and swing with a whole bunch of tokens and stuff. That's cool. And I'll throw NJ17 Turning the Tide in the deck as well, just in case. That's 2 win cons. The deck's main strategy is to spam a Boonie, but I throw NJ17 Turning the Tide as a backup strategy. I'll win whichever way the game goes, right? I either win because I got 7 energies and drop my NJ17 Turn Tide, win that way, or I do the little combo that I put in the deck to do the whole little Boonie swarm, and swarm with swing with a whole bunch of Boonie tokens, right, after image tokens. right? And that's the mindset of, you know, a player who, you know, plays the game, right? Who tries to come up with different ways to win the game because they understand the game, as opposed to like, I only know how to play this deck's ramp strategy and ramp to this point, and that's it, and that's all I know how to do. Or I only know how to play this deck's ability to a rival, and that's it. It's like, that's it? So you only know how to rival certain cards in the deck, and that's it. You don't have a win con. You don't have a plan of actions, right? You don't have a strategy to guarantee you can win. You're just hoping you can win by, I'll say, luck. Typically, most people try to win by luck. Most people play with the idea of luck being more of a thing than skill. It's like, no, if you have a win con, then you'll win more by the win con, aka skill, than through luck. Luck is, well, if you get lucky. If you get lucky and you attack and your opponent can't out combo and your attack goes through and you win, lucky you, because the situation allowed you to win, not because you actually had a strategy to win, not because you planned to win. You won because, lucky you, your opponent couldn't out combo. They didn't have enough to combo, so you won. So that's luck. But if you know, ramp up to 16 energy and tap all 16 energy and activate your leader's ability to win, well, that's skill, right? Because you had a strategy, and everything you did, every decision you made led to that outcome. That's skill. What's not skill is, you know, you're like, okay, play an energy, pay 5, play this. Any response? No. Attack. Any response? No. Okay, combo a couple cards from my hand. Any response? Nah, man, not enough to out combo that attack. All right, cool. That's luck. There's no skill there. That's luck. There's no pre-planning for that or anything. You just charge that energy, play the card, attack with it, combo a couple cards from your hand, and hope that you win. There was no plan to win. You just hope that you win, and then bang. If you won, good for you. But again, that's luck, not skill. Most players play with the idea of skill, since they play with luck in mind a lot, and a lot of times, if they won, probably was through luck, right? More often than not, that they got lucky and they were able to beat their opponent. Then they think that everybody plays that way. That the way that the game is so hard and complicated that the only way you can win is through luck. It's like, no, the game is not that hard. It's relatively simple, straightforward. You just gotta play that way. You gotta play with the intention of doing 1 or 2 damage per turn. You know, the first 4 damage is the easiest. The next 2 requires a little effort. The last 2 is the hardest. But if you have a strategy to do the last 2 damage, it ain't that hard. It ain't that hard. I've come up with, you know, with many decks, and you know, that are designed to help you with the last 2 damage, because the first 6 are not the hardest. The last 2 is the hardest. I wish it wasn't the hardest. Though the last 2 damage is the damage you wish was the easiest. But no, it's the hardest, obviously. But once you get there, you know, and you deal the last 2 damage, GG, right? You're always working towards that goal. And the last thing I have to say before this podcast is over, because I gotta go to work, do some work. Evolving as a player, something I noticed that sometimes people say that I don't evolve or change or whatever, you know, that I'm always doing the same thing all the time or something. It's like, y'all really don't be watching my videos at all. I've been changing, evolving. I've been changing, evolving before everybody else changes and evolves. Everybody else is doing the same shit. It's like, I created the I'm gonna say it, fuck it. I created the Soul Surge deck. Now it's popping. Now people playing it. It's like, alright, cool. Y'all like, what, 7 months late? I've been did the Soul Surge thing. Like, what? Like, I've been, you know, shit. Definitely need credit for this. Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta with turning the Titan and Tragic Overground. I've been there, did that. But then you got somebody else take it to a tournament and everybody's acting like that's the only person who ever did that. Like, what? No, I didn't do that. But whatever. Don't give me credit, I guess. But anyway, the point is that I'm always ahead of the game. Some people have noticed that, and some people have said that. It's like, yes, I'm glad people realizing the truth. Like, there's a lot of lies about me out there. I'm not a fan of that, because, you know, that's not cool to make up stuff about me, to say that I said stuff that I never said. But anyway, the thing is that I'm always evolving as a player. You could say I'm not evolving as a content creator. Fine, because I'm not a content creator. I'm a vlogger. I'm a player, and I share my ideas from the games that I play. That's what I do. I'm not a content creator. Content creator, you know, are people who make, like, you know, ban list prediction videos, or as soon as the ban list drops, they got to make a video about it. That's a content creator. I see a ban list, I'm like, okay, none of the cards that I play got banned. Cool. Then I don't care. I don't make a big deal. I don't go out of my way to be like, oh, I gotta make a video about the ban list. I don't need to do that. That's what content creators do. That's not what I do. Content creators are the ones trying to promote certain things. Like, oh shit, there's a new set that came out. Let me tell everybody that the new set is coming out. Like, all right, cool. You're being useful for the ones who need that. The ones who need to know when the new sets are coming out. They'll subscribe to you, follow you, so that way you can tell them every time new cards get spoiled, every time new sets are dropped, any new news about the card game. You know, if there's any errata, you're gonna let people know about it. That's cool, and you know, we need stuff like that. But I don't do that because I'm not a content creator. I'm not keeping track of every errata, ban list, product releases and stuff like that. I'm just like every other player. I get my information from actual content creators, from people who, you know, as soon as, you know, the official Facebook page posts new cards, you know, spoilers of cards, they immediately want to tell people about it. I noticed that the Facebook page posts this stuff, and I download the pictures and I start, you know, theory crafting and start making decks based off of them. That's what I do. That's why y'all get the deck profiles. Me reading these cards, coming up with ideas with these cards, and using them to update older decks. So if it looks like I'm not evolving because I'm essentially doing the same stuff over and over again, it's like, well, I'm updating a lot of decks. I have a Hatchiac deck, so of course I'm going to keep making different versions of it, because I'm always going to have different ideas for the deck. I have Bulma, so I'm going to make different versions of that. I play Gohan. I play Zamasu set 2. I got Metal Cooler. I barely do much with that, but I got a Metal Cooler deck. I should obviously upgrade that deck some more. I have a Black Mass Saiyan deck / Bardock deck. It's basically Vegex. It's basically Vegex. That's all it really is. Both decks are just basically Vegex without the Vegex leader. Let's see. And I just tons of cards. I could and tons of leaders. I got tons of leaders, so obviously I could just build any deck I want. But the main thing is that I got some specific decks that I use. You know, Hatchiac, Bulma, Gohan. Those are and Zamasu. Those are like the decks that I mainly work on, because those are like my main decks for competitive player or fun, whichever way you want to look at it. But those are my main decks. But then of course I just create a whole bunch of other decks. Raditz is another thing. I like Raditz, and I like the idea of Raditz hand control, like aggro hand control, that kind of stuff. So yes, I have a Raditz deck profile I'm working on, so that'll be up in the near future. Still got some new Hatchiac ideas, so I'm working on that obviously. But you know, saying I don't evolve is like, or I don't take criticism or advice, is like, I do take criticism and I do take advice when those two things are actually given to me. But what I normally get is neither one of those two things. What normally I get is trolling or disrespect. Like, it's not criticism to just say that this deck is terrible or this deck is trash. It's like you're stating an opinion. You're not giving a critique. You're not giving me anything helpful, right? You're implying that there's a problem with the deck, but you didn't specify what the problem was. If you're not specifying what the problem is, then how can I fix it, right? If there is a problem. If you have, because the thing is, when you critique, you're supposed to present the problem that you see, and then you're supposed to give a solution if you have a solution for it. And you should have a solution, because it makes no sense for you to point out a problem and not have a solution, because that's useless. Then you're not critiquing. The idea of a critique is that you see a problem and you know how to fix the problem. If you don't know how to fix a problem, then stay quiet, because you don't know shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Let the people who know what they're talking about talk, right? I know what I'm talking about, so that's why I'll speak and talk about what I know about. So if I say, hey, look, this deck is, this leader and these cards are really good together, synergize really well, blah, 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 and create this really cool, strategy, outcome, whatever, then yeah, I know a thing or two about what I'm talking about. And I have gameplays that illustrate and showcase those ideas. I've done the Shenron OTK strategy a couple times. I have videos of me winning with that strategy, so I already know that it works. So if I make a new deck, Shenron OTK, like let's say they make a Bola leader, and I make a Bola Shenron OTK deck. All right, cool. Nothing really new there per se, because yeah, Shenron OTK is something I've done a lot. It's not really a new strategy, but it is a new leader with new cards that I can use towards that strategy. Just like I did the Videl Shenron OTK deck, is because she works really good with skilllesses, right? You combo skillless battle cards, draw a card, so there's synergy there. So she's a really good leader for that strategy, for the Shenron OTK strategy. There are some other leaders that are much better. Oh, here's another. Because she's green, I have access to the Dr. Jero super combo, which allows me to drop skillless battle cards. I think 4 costs or less, green or yellow skillless battle card, not skillless, just battle cards, like green or yellow 4 costs or less battle cards. So I could drop the 30k green skillless battle cards with that super combo. So there's synergy because she's a green leader. I mean, if she was yellow, I would get a similar result. But because she's green, I can use Rebrand. I can use Dormant Potential. I can use Bigger More, right? I can use stuff like that. I can use green good stuff that has some hand control. I can use, green Unison and whatnot, right? That might need a green leader in order to do some extra cool stuff. The point is her being green and having synergy with skillless allows me to do hand control with, combine it with the skillless strategy of the skillless OTK. Of the Shenron OTK strategy, that I'm able to combine it. Most other decks where I use Shenron OTK, the Shenron OTK strategy don't have hand control, because usually I'm either using a strategy with maybe a red leader, blue leader, or yellow leader. But this is one of the few times where it was a green leader. I think this probably was the first and only time I used a green leader for the Shenron OTK. So it makes a big deal that Videl synergizes well with that strategy, because I get the hand control, plus she works with skillless battle cards. But yeah, saying I don't evolve as a player or just don't evolve in general in the game that's a joke. That's a clear and blatant lie, because that's false. I'm always evolving. That's the whole point. I'm always improving and getting better. Some people think improving means doing what everybody else does, being a sheep, doing what everybody's already doing. But what everybody's doing is stuff that I did like a year ago, and they're doing it now. It's like, nah, I'd rather do what I'm doing, staying ahead of the game, doing things before everybody else does it. Why do I want to do things when everybody else is doing it, right? Then I'm not being myself, that I'm being like everyone else. And yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm from the generation where you're supposed to be yourself, not pretend to be someone else. Just because you're wearing Michael Jordan sneakers does not mean you are Michael Jordan. Just because you net deck off of Jordan and Markle does not mean you are Jordan and Markle. And that's the end of the podcast.